It's no different than walking out in our backyard and finding a rattlesnake. Hi, I've been passing through here for years.
Right.
You just got here. The same thing with these floods. Sometimes they're 200- and 300-year floods. They've always passed through here. It's just the first in our lifetime that we're witnessing it.
Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 111. If you'd like more information about the podcast, it's all at the website desertladydiaries.com, and I invite you to engage with the guests, with other listeners, or me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries, or on Twitter at Desert Lady Diary. Patti Brown moved to the high desert in 1990, seeking fresh air, beautiful night skies, and solitude from the city rat race. Originally from Northern California, her career background was entirely in the retail field. When she moved to Yucca Valley, the only non-mom-and-pop retail store was Old Kmart, so she was forced to travel up and down the hill for better employment. Tiring of that quickly, she decided to pursue a career in real estate, which eventually led her to lending. After working for several local brokers, Patti decided to branch out on her own and thus began the adventure of the Loan Lady, aka the Queen of Green, in 1996, and recently voted the 2019 Morongo Basin's Best of the Best for lending services. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Dawn. It's great to be here.
So what was your first experience with desert?
It was actually coming to visit Yucca Valley. My mother-in-law was a realtor here, and my then boyfriend, now husband, wanted me to meet his mom and drove me out here, and I wondered where we were going.
And where were you coming from at that point?
At that point, we lived in Orange County. Okay. I lived in Brea, so only a couple hours out, but I'd never been this far removed from the city.
Yeah. So what were your first impressions driving in? Do you remember that at all?
I was a little nervous that I was going on an adventure that I might not be coming back from. And felt that it was a little barren, a little far removed from my normal necessities of life. And so I was a little concerned about where I was being taken to, so to speak.
Don't even factor in the fact that you're meeting the future mother-in-law, potentially, right?
Believe it or not, that was less concerning, which should have been more concerning. But no, it was more being from Northern California. I'm from the land of green and water, and this was so polar opposite. It was quite shocking.
Right. What year was that? Do you remember?
That was in 1989, the first time I came here.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then subsequent trips, was it that you kind of started to fall in love with it? What was the reason for then moving here?
I think the wow moment of, wait a minute, maybe we aren't looking at this from the right perspective, was look at how when we come here, there's so much peace here and serenity. And we were leaving one Christmas and we were driving down the Morongo Grade and it was snowing. And it looked like the Star Wars where they're flying into the galaxy and the stars are all coming towards the windshield, but it was snow. And I looked at him and said, why wouldn't we just stay here? We've seen 3 or 4 seasons. This is really a nice place. And that started the conversation for the next 2 hours on the way home of why aren't we? Rather than how can we, it became why wouldn't we?
Interesting.
Why wouldn't we?
So then take me through that process of just making the final decision. How long did it take? Did you come down and look at real estate? How did that all?
Like I said, my mother-in-law was in real estate. So once we dropped the, maybe, that was it. She's like, I've got a cabin for you out in Flamingo Heights. You guys can come look at it this weekend. And we're like, whoa, what's going on? And it was kind of a snowball effect. But, and at that point, we weren't even sure, are we going to weekend or are we going to make this a full-time move?
Right.
But literally our house payment was $300 a month. And we were paying $1,300 a month in LA for a 1-bedroom place. We're like, wait a minute.
Wow.
This makes so much sense. Why wouldn't we just move here?
Yeah.
And so she sold us our first little cabin in Flamingo Heights that I really wish I still had. We paid a whopping $30,000 for it.
Oh my goodness.
And sold it a couple years later when our family expanded for a whopping $35,000. We thought we were real estate tycoons making money and everything,
Sure.
Eventually moved to Joshua Tree, but that was 29 years past. I still will confess it took me 2 or 3 years to truly fall in love. I liked it here, But it took me a little while to settle in and fall in love.
What were some of the things that were kind of holding you back from just giving yourself over?
I think part of it was having to travel out of the area for my career. So I didn't really get the opportunity to meet the people of the community, to get to know the area, because I was traveling an hour and 15 minutes to go to work and to assist people that didn't even live in my community. So I didn't get ingrained into our area. Once I moved into a career that I could work up the hill, that all changed. Completely changed. Okay. Relationships start establishing. You get to know the teachers, the nurses, the people of your community, and it does change your whole perspective, I think.
How about from a living day-to-day practicalities of the landscape? When you came, did you find any of that challenging?
Oh, well, the first night that we lived here, after we moved, I think it took 3 or 4 loads from LA to get our entire belongings here. And I said to my husband, I got to run out and go get some supplies. We have no food. We have nothing to drink. I'm just going to run to that grocery store down the street. I'll be right back. I then had to call him and make him drive to Old Woman Springs Road, because I was driving up and down Old Woman Springs Road and could not find my house. I literally said to him, I don't know the difference between a dirt road and a bunny trail, apparently, and I'm afraid I'm just going to pull off into the desert.
Right.
And he had to drive to the end of the street and literally lead me into the house, because the landscape was so foreign to me and so different. And I love it when people give directions and they're like, it's just past the second Joshua tree. And I'm like, oh, that's going to have to be a little more specific than that.
Right.
But that's what it felt like, where I didn't even know where to turn to get to my house.
Yeah.
And the climate, of course, was like, are you kidding me? It's 120 degrees here for 2 weeks. I think we are maybe making a mistake. Should we move to Big Bear during the summer? But now it drops below 85 and I wear a sweater.
Exactly.
So.
Oh, wow, you're worse than me. I say usually around 78.
Yeah,
I'm ready
we
for
start
this,
shivering. I'm like, oh my goodness. So you just become accustomed to.
So when you moved, you had to find work. What was that process like when you came? Did you immediately go down the hill, or did you spend some time here trying to...
I immediately went down the hill.
Gotcha.
I went immediately down the hill to the mall, so all the way down to Palm Desert.
Right.
At that time, there was a Bullock's there that later warped into a Macy's, but it was Bullock's when I went to work there, and it was the first and only job I applied for. I'd had 18 years in retail, and so they were ready to allow me to jump on board, and I started working down there, and my husband worked in Palm Springs. Okay. So we literally drove the hill for over 2 years.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
I feel really bad for people that do that, because it makes a long day.
Right.
It's a 12-hour day no matter which way you slice it.
I went down to Sam's, the hot springs, last night. I have friends that live there, and I went down with a friend, and we were talking about that coming back up, that he says, I wonder how many people from up here drive down there every day, and then there's always the danger of something happening on the Morongo grade or the other grade.
Oh, yes.
That you just don't know.
My daughter works down the hill, and I told her this year particularly, I feel like the Mother Doppler weather forecast. I mean, she's down in Desert Hot Springs at work, and I'm like, there's clouds in the sky. I smell rain through the swamp cooler. I'm really nervous. Well, and through all the storms of the last year, she got caught in every single one of them.
No.
So, I mean, the one night when they had to close the highway, there was somebody stuck right in downtown Josh. She's at the cemetery with me on the phone going, I can't go back toward Yucca Mesa.
Right.
I can't go forward through Joshua Tree. She was stuck. But the good thing is that the weather changes quickly in the desert, for good, bad, or otherwise.
Right, exactly.
And within an hour, she's like, okay, I think I can get home.
Do you think people, like, if they're down the hill and they realize they can't get back up, do they just sit, or do some people say, well, at some point you can't move. You can't turn around and go the other direction.
I think if they're educated about the area, they know to sit tight as an example, that particular night, my daughter watched the stranded car pull into the wash, and she was on the phone with me, and she started screaming on the phone, "What is she doing? She can't go through that," because she's got the education. She grew up here, but people that aren't familiar with our area or passing through, they may not know. Don't drown, turn around.
Right.
They don't know how important that is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for someone listening who doesn't know what a wash is, can you explain?
Well, it's basically the earth and sand moving through our area at such a rapid speed. It's like concrete, and literally will move vehicles, boulders, trees, and most definitely people. So you just have to wait them out. Yeah.
And stay where you are and don't drive through what you think might be a small puddle.
It's just not safe. Yeah, Mother Nature does not have any mercy.
Was it a year ago that we had that big?
It was about 8 or 10 months ago.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, a Volkswagen Beetle buried up to its roof.
Yeah. That fortunately a CHP officer ran in and saved the lady that was stuck. And it opened up pretty big while she was entering it. So I'm not going to say that it was a huge, massive earth slide.
Sure.
And she started to enter it. It happened as she was entering what she thought was a small enough puddle.
And that's how quickly
absolutely
it happens.
It does.
I mean, it was pretty horrific. Fortunately, it happened on a weekend.
Yes.
So downtown was basically closed.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the farmers market people got in because I can see them from here, but that was pretty frightening.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like it was a reminder from Mother Nature of, you know what? You can build all these houses and you can build all these roads and parking lots, but guess what?
Yeah.
If I want to cover it back up with sand and dirt, I'm going to do that.
I'm the one in control. It's no different than walking out in our backyard and finding a rattlesnake. Hi, I've been passing through here for years. You just got here. The same thing with these floods. Sometimes they're 200 and 300 year floods. They've always passed through here. It's just the first in our lifetime that we're witnessing it.
Yeah. So tell me about getting into retail. What was it that attracted you to that business?
My dad was in retail. He worked for Nordstrom and started his own business in Grass Valley in Northern California. And so I grew up around the retail industry and just naturally floated into that until we moved to Yucca Valley. So worked in retail management. The last store I worked for before we moved up here was Nordstrom as well. Lady Shoes in the Brea Mall. It was a wonderful job. I like retail because I like people. I like communicating with people, so I definitely enjoyed that. But it didn't seem like a career that was going to go anywhere quickly in Yucca Valley. The night that we moved to Yucca Valley, I got pregnant with my first child. We blame it on the fresh air and sunshine. Maybe it was a little too fresh. And so I also did not want the hours of retail anymore. They are grueling hours, and during the holidays, you're gone all the time. And I wanted to see my kids more than that. I wanted more office hours, Monday through Friday. The ability to raise my kids.
So was the fact that your mother-in-law was in real estate, did that make that entree easier?
Yes, she's the one that transitioned me. She needed my help. She was very, very busy, and so I started as being her assistant, and then she's like, oh, just go get your license. Oh, just do a little more. Next thing you know, I was a secretary. Next thing you know, I was a realtor. And then I got stolen into escrow and then lending, which is definitely my niche. I found my home in lending. I really love being able to help people get homes or provide assistance for their businesses if they're people that flip or invest. But I get to do it Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and still have, and now instead of kids, it's grandkids that I want to spend time with.
How many grandchildren do you have?
6.
Whoa! And how many children do you have?
I only have 2.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so, and I'm lucky they're all here. Nobody moved away. Nobody transitioned out of the area, which I totally anticipated. So I'm fortunate that they're all here and I get to spend a lot of time with them.
That's great. And it's a great place. Everybody that I talk to says they either made a decision to come back here to raise their kids or they decided to stay here to raise their kids.
I've seen a lot of people move out of the area and make the U-turn and come right back saying, what we found out there was not near as good as what we had here. I'm fortunate my kids appreciate it as well. They like the small town. They like knowing the people within the community and the people that live here. They have relationships with them as well. So I see them staying, fortunately, rather than being tempted to leave.
So let's talk a little bit about what hard money is, because I think there may be some folks who maybe hear the commercials on the local radio station that you do, or have heard that term in passing, that don't really understand how that process works or what it means.
Exactly. A hard money loan is different from a traditional bank loan because it's funded by individuals, not by institutions. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith have a little nest egg of money that they are willing to loan out on real estate loans because they are secured and collateralized by a piece of real estate. It's different from traditional because, of course, when you go in for traditional lending, you get a very wonderfully low interest rate right now, 4%, 3.5%, 4%, but you have to qualify with quite a bit of documentation. The property has to qualify as well. It has to be in good shape, no different than when you go to buy a car. If it doesn't have an engine or tires, you're not going to get financing on it. Kind of the same with homes. But hard money, the definition is a higher interest rate, privately funded loan. It is outside the traditional gamut because the interest rates are much higher, 9, 10, 11%.
Okay.
But they fund transactions that traditional banks will not. My atypical borrower is a contractor that's flipping a home.
Okay.
And right now the home has a terrible roof, blown out windows. It wouldn't qualify for financing, so nobody can purchase it.
Right.
The bank wants the collateral to be in perfect shape. So the contractor goes in and purchase the home, and I assist with the purchase, rehabs the home, and then can sell it in the traditional market to first-time home buyers or people looking for investments, but puts it back into livable and good condition. Those are my number one people that borrow money from me. There are other people that may have credit issues or a reason that they may not be able to purchase right now. They may come to me, but the vast majority are people investing in real estate. The Airbnb people, that's something new to our area and was very new to my lending, but they had difficulty qualifying in traditional lending because they didn't know what to do with that rental income. Is it a business? Is it a rental? Is there vacancy and it's not rented on a regular basis, so it's hard to use the income from the rental because it's not regular. So I had a lot of customers, well, and not to mention it takes a lot more money to start one of those than people would imagine. So those became my customers in the last 3-4 years as well. Little cabins that look like Swiss cheese when I moved here 30 years ago
Right.
suddenly look beautiful, and they're putting decks on them and new roofs, all of which takes money. But once they spend the money, they get a return on their money. So that's basically the face of my customer. Sometimes it's help me with a loan now, and then I can go and have the bank help me with a loan, that I'm just a bridge from here to there.
Right.
They are definitely bridge loans. They're temporary loans. They're not 30-year fixed or anything as long as that generally.
Right. When you say it takes a lot more of the money than people think to start an Airbnb, what costs are people not recognizing?
I think that people don't realize how much it costs to fill a home with furniture and all of the accessories, down to the forks, down to every bed sheet. Most people think that's probably somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000, and it's usually between $15,000 and $20,000.
Wow.
Depending on if you are having to do appliances, landscaping, things of that nature. But it costs a lot more than people initially think it will. One of my jobs is obviously not to get somebody into trouble. I want to assist.
Yeah.
And so when I'll say to them, why don't you go home and make a list? What do you still need to purchase to complete it and get that Airbnb across the finish line? And when they come back, almost 100% of the time they'll say, this list is a lot thicker than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
There's a lot more. The little things can little thing you and surprise you to a big price tag.
Yeah. Good to know. So coming here in, it was 96?
It was actually 1990 when I moved here.
Oh, okay. So talk to me about the changes that you've seen since 1990.
Well, on every gamut. I mean, from what's available to us here, opportunities for small businesses, for better jobs. I've seen a lot of changes. Better roadways. For goodness sakes, we're getting a sewer. I mean, right? I remember moving here and going, what's a septic tank? What does that even mean?
Right.
And getting the education on what you can and can't do with a septic tank. But the growth has been unbelievable here and the improvements. I mean, even in just the last few years, the Airbnb market, what it's done for our real estate market, it's improved it, but also look at the quality of the properties and how that's improved. I tell people those little rentals can't be a mess. Suddenly the properties that had a lot of junk on them or were filled with trash, we're seeing less and less of those. Unfortunately, when I moved here, we had a reputation of being so far out that we had drug problems and meth labs and cabins that squatters were living in on a regular basis. Well, suddenly those cabins are worth $140,000, so there's not squatters in them anymore. There's tourists in them instead.
Right.
I've seen, in my opinion, nothing but improvement. I am growth positive. I like growth. The farmers market we were talking about earlier, I love that we have those opportunities. When we 29 years ago moved here, there wasn't enough people for the farmers to be convinced to come up here. We didn't have enough of a voice. There weren't enough people saying, we need this and we want this. So the improvements I really credit to the community for not only allowing the growth, but trying to control it and make sure it's not something too crazy, but also accepting it and welcoming it. It opens up jobs. I mean, I look at the grocery outlet that just opened up. They hired 35 people.
Wow.
That's wonderful for our community. We need that.
Right. I would like to see, too, a little more, not necessarily high-tech jobs, but like clean jobs. I don't know if intellectual is the right word.
Industrial would be amazing if we could get some industry.
Yeah, exactly. Just because those are higher paying, and with the rise in the real estate costs, I think there are a lot of people that are here now that are kind of being left behind as well. And I don't know, do you have a solution to offer them about what they can do? Yeah. I mean, I myself put a bid on a house probably over a year ago in Joshua Tree, and it was outbid $16,000.
Yeah.
I can't compete with that.
Well, and it's unbelievable as the prices rise, it does leave, I mean, I do own a couple of properties. I like purchasing as well, but right now I'm looking around going, it costs so much to even get in the door. So with the better quality comes the better price. With the growth comes the higher price as well.
Yeah.
I do know that I feel like buyers are horses at a starting gate just waiting for something to come on the market and the race start. I see people literally getting bombarded in the first week of their listing because there's so many people looking.
Right.
There was a home that just closed escrow up on the Mesa, $471,000.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful contemporary modern, very unusual style. So it did command the top of the market. But as a lender, my first question is, who is qualifying for that?
Right.
That's a big check. It's proof
It's not somebody who's cleaning Airbnbs.
Exactly. It's not the handyman that's fixing it or the glazier replacing the windows.
Right.
It's definitely somebody from a higher income bracket than this area likely. But yet I've seen more higher wage earners come into our area. I've seen less of the school district going outside of our area to obtain teachers, to go look for people for our school district. It seems they're more able to get people right here in this area as our community has grown, where before they were crossing the United States going and looking for teachers because we didn't have enough qualified people here within the community.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the same situation at the hospital.
Well, and you know, it's wonderful. We have at the college the nursing program where they assist nurses to get their nursing degree, but they're looking at the statistics right now because most of the nurses, by the time they graduate, rather than fulfilling their contract and staying here in the high desert, they buy out of it and they go elsewhere for a higher paycheck.
Wow.
So we've got to look at those numbers and make sure that part of our goal is the retention and keeping the qualified people here. So are we not offering a good enough wage? Maybe it's too cheap to buy out of the contract after we've provided the service, but all those people do tend to leave for the check. Like you say, how many people drive that hill? I question whether or not they make that much more money when they're paying for car
insurance, gas,
everything.
Right.
And the hours. They're putting in definitely more hours.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of that, you were doing an hour and 15 each way.
Right.
So it's a 10-hour day where quality of life
Exactly. You moved
Comes
here
into
because
question.
the enjoyment of living here, but you're
Right.
only on the road, not actually living here.
Right. So have you seen the change come in waves? Have you seen it like the area becomes popular and then people go away and it slows down and then it becomes popular again?
I have seen that. I mean, I've seen some pretty amazing things happen. We had in '92, we had the big earthquake, and I watched everybody run away. I mean, nothing like fear to drive somebody right out of their chair and right out of the community. I always say, where are you going? We can't leave the planet.
Right.
And it's going to happen.
Right.
It was scary. I'm the first to tell you, I'm a California girl, and it was very, very frightening. But a lot of people left there. It took a while for our community to see the influx of people coming. When that happens, we do see investors come in because our prices get so low, it makes sense. Even through this last buy and go around, I'm like, when you can buy a house for $100,000, which is what some people are paying for their cars, it makes sense. We live amongst it, so it just looks like the normal to us. It's interesting when we put on the glasses from other people's perspective on how inexpensive it is comparatively.
Right.
So I've seen a couple of things like that change it. Of course, the real estate market crash caused a lot of people within that industry to get out of this area. I mean, even as far as people were moving to North Dakota to go build there because there was some construction opportunities going on there. But not all of them sold their houses here. I think once you live here, you do love it here. And like I say, a lot of the people I watch go away immediately make a U-turn and come right back. Instead, I just decide I won't leave.
Right.
Yeah,
Just stay.
I'll just stay. You were talking about buying a house. Don't give up.
Yeah,
It does
no.
take more perseverance. You do have to really have a good realtor that's watching out for you. Be prepared. Before you get to the starting gate, talk to people about how you're financing it. If you have cash, have the proof of your funds available and ready, because the faster you move, the better of a chance that
Right.
you have.
Well, and I've talked to some other women on the program who most of them have told me they were pre-approved.
Yes.
And that seems like an important thing. I was not.
And that takes a
So
little
it
time.
takes time, and if people are getting 16,000 more than the asking price,
Well, yeah,
they're not going to wait for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and because you show your seriousness. I've already got the money lined up.
Right, I'm ready to
looking
go.
for a house. Let's do this.
Right.
And it's not a market where people think, oh, it's like buying a car. You know, they're asking $150. I'm going to offer $140. Unfortunately, that is not the market right now.
Right.
Just like you said, when they're asking $150, people are paying $150, or if they really want it,
Yeah.
they will go above the asking price.
Right.
It is a seller's market.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that it's always a good time to buy real estate. Paying somebody rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage payment.
Right.
Why not pay your own?
Yeah.
But one of the things I tell people I work with that are looking for homes is when you miss out on a deal and you think, oh, I really wanted that house, I remind them there's another one right around the corner.
And usually there's a reason why.
And almost every time somebody has said to me, thank goodness that last house didn't come through because look what I got instead.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a matter of the right thing lining up. And there's a lot of houses out there. Just keep trying. Just
Yeah.
keep swinging.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you feel like we've hit a bubble?
I feel we're starting a bubble. And of
Okay.
course, we just went through this. I literally started my business right before the crash of the '07 market.
Oh, gosh.
And so it was I'm going to get a lesson on how to hold on tight rather than how good it's going to be being self-employed.
Right.
I got to learn the worst, of it first rather than the best of it. I pretty much felt that was coming as well, that you can only blow the balloon up so big before it pops.
Right.
I don't think we're quite there yet. One of the things that's a little different is we have a huge inflow of money from out of the area.
Yeah.
People that don't have to live here to make that house payment.
Right.
It's people that make money elsewhere that are usually higher wage earners to make the house payment here.
Yeah.
So I think that it is still going to blow up a little bit more before we have any type of a downturn of the market.
Yeah.
And of course, I've been through so many downturns that I have learned it never gets as low as it was the time before. Things that I have regretted investing in are like land. You can't do anything with land when the market's crashing. At least if you have a home, you can rent it out. Somebody's helping you to make that mortgage payment. So it's not as financially distressing as just something that you're paying on that's not giving you any return.
Unless you have other plans like to build and that's your goal.
That is the biggest value in land, is if you're somebody who's going to build a home or a contractor.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like I got an education today.
Oh, wow. That's funny because people say, gosh, sometimes I talk to you and I feel like I need to go home and digest.
But it's all good information.
But 30 years is a lot of time to squeeze into one podcast.
Absolutely. Totally. But before you go, I would love to have you choose 4 numbers between 1 and 50, and the answers to those questions will be available exclusively to my Patreon supporters of the podcast. So what are your 4 numbers?
Number 16. It's my birthday day.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Number 22.
That's my birthday day.
Oh, maybe that. I picked that up somehow psychically. 30 and to 50. Is we're going to 50?
Yeah.
49.
Okay. So when we come back, the questions you'll answer will be, what is your ultimate vacation destination and what would you do there? How would your best friend describe you? How do you cope with stress? And finish this sentence, I've always wanted. So if you would like to hear Patti's answers to those questions, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and sign up to be a patron of the podcast. Thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you inviting me. I had a wonderful time.
I'm glad. Thanks
you. Thanks so much, Dawn.
I have shout-outs this week to David J. and Pat H. Thank you so much for signing up to support the podcast on Patreon. You who now have access to all of the Diary Unlocked episodes from the beginning of the year. Enjoy them. If you would like to get access to the Diary Unlocked content, where the guests answer questions not covered in the free portion of the podcast, head over to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and then click on the Become a Patron button, which will take you to the Patreon site to sign up. Pat and David, I really appreciate your support. October 31st marks the 25 years since the signing of the 1994 California Desert Protection Act. To learn more about this Protection Act, look at maps of what land has been protected over the last 25 years, and find local events celebrating the anniversary this month, go to desertlands.org/lands/25 years. One more time, that's desertlands.org/lands/25 years. And now I have a really special trailer for a new true crime podcast that has actually been developed by my friend Jules Hannaford, who lives in Hong Kong and has a podcast called Hong Kong Confidential. This book that she wrote called Fool Me Twice is based on her true life experience using online dating. And it's probably a cautionary tale for many people who are using that platform to try and find a partner. I met Jules in July of 2018 at a podcast conference in Philadelphia. We were both about the same length of time into this podcasting journey. We both had about the same number of episodes out. We've stayed in touch since then, so I am happy to promote her new true crime podcast series based on her book, which is also called Fool Me Twice.
Fool Me Twice follows the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, in her attempts to find love online. I'm Zara Hannaford, and in this series, I'm trying to understand romance scams, why people fall for them, and how they work. My mother was successful and happy in her life and her job, but was still lonely. After being single for more than a decade, she turned to online dating as a last resort. At first, it seemed she was consistently meeting men who were not good enough. One after the other, they seemed to only want her for her money, and she was beginning to lose hope. Finally, she met a man who had his life together. Truman was a project manager at a construction firm and seemed as excited as Jules was about the possibility of building a life with someone special. She traveled across the world to meet him, and as soon as she landed, the fairy tale began to unravel. All was not as it seemed. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, will be released on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Ozcast network on the 25th of October. Subscribe now so that you don't miss an episode.
Sounds pretty good. And I'm really proud of Jules for doing this. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.